you're probably wasting half your garden space and don't even realize it. What if the biggest reason your plants struggle isn't your soil, your seeds, or even your weather, but the direction they grow? Because the moment you take crops off the ground and grow them upward, everything changes. More food, less disease, way fewer pests. And suddenly, your small garden feels twice the size. Here's the surprising part. Some of the plants that benefit the most are the ones nobody ever thinks to trellis. In this video, we're breaking down 12 crops that explode in productivity when grown vertically, including the exact zones they thrive in, how to support them properly, and little-known techniques that make a massive difference. And stick around, because the final crop is something almost everyone grows, but nearly everyone supports the wrong way. Before we jump in, if you enjoy learning how to grow smarter, not harder, consider subscribing to Verdant Harvest, only if it feels useful to you. Now let's talk about a plant that completely transforms vertical gardening when used right. Number 12, chayote. This is not a small vine. It's a powerhouse. A single plant can produce anywhere from 50 to 100 fruits in one season. But that productivity comes with a trade-off. It grows aggressively, often reaching over 30 feet in length. Without support, it doesn't just spread, it takes over. But when you give it a strong structure, like an arbor, pergola, or heavy-duty trellis, it becomes something entirely different. It turns into a living canopy. Fruits hang down neatly for easy picking, while the dense foliage above creates shade below, and that shaded space becomes incredibly valuable during hot weather. You can grow heat-sensitive crops like lettuce or cilantro underneath, protected from harsh sun. So instead of one crop, you're now harvesting two from the same footprint. That's the kind of efficiency that separates average gardens from highly productive ones. And if heat is something you constantly battle, then, number 11, yard-long beans deserve your attention. Unlike traditional green beans that slow down or stop in high temperatures, these thrive in it. In fact, the hotter it gets, the better they perform. They're vigorous climbers that need at least a 6-foot trellis, and once established, they produce long, elegant pods that can exceed 18 inches. They're not just productive, they're resilient. And there's another advantage most people overlook. Yard-long beans are legumes, which means they work with beneficial soil bacteria to capture nitrogen from the air and store it in the soil. So while they're feeding you, they're also feeding your garden. The next crops you plant will benefit from that natural fertility boost, reducing your need for added fertilizers. They grow best in zones 7 through 11, especially in warm, humid climates where other crops struggle. And this is where things start to shift, because up to this point, trellising has been a powerful upgrade. But what comes next are crops where growing vertically isn't just helpful. It's the difference between success and failure. Now we move into a different category of plants, ones that don't just benefit from vertical growing, they actually depend on it. Let's begin with something most people recognize, but rarely think about growing. Number 10, loofah gourds. Yes, the same loofah you use in your kitchen or shower starts as a vegetable on a vine. When harvested early, the fruits are soft and edible, very similar to zucchini. But if you let them fully mature, usually around 120 days, they dry out into fibrous sponges you can use for cleaning, bathing, or even scrubbing garden tools. It's one of the most versatile crops you can grow. But here's where things go wrong. If loofah grows along the ground, the fruits become distorted. They curve, flatten, and often start rotting before they're fully developed. Moist soil, poor airflow, and constant contact with the ground create the perfect conditions for damage. That's why vertical support isn't optional, it's essential. When you grow loofah on a strong trellis, gravity does the work for you. The fruits hang freely, developing straight, uniform shapes. They stay clean, dry, and far less prone to disease. But there's one critical detail: strength. These vines grow aggressively, often stretching beyond 30 feet, and the mature gourds can become surprisingly heavy. Lightweight supports will collapse under the load. You need something solid: metal panels, reinforced wood frames, or a sturdy pergola. Now let's move to a crop that almost feels too heavy to lift off the ground. Number 09, melons. At first, the idea sounds unrealistic. After all, melons can be large, dense, and heavy. But here's the secret. You don't let the vine carry the full weight. You assist it. Using simple fabric slings, old t-shirts, cloth strips, or soft fabric, you create a cradle for each fruit. As the melon grows, the sling supports it, attaching to the trellis and removing stress from the vine. This one technique completely changes how melons grow. Instead of sprawling across large sections of your garden, sometimes over 50 square feet per plant, you contain them vertically in just a fraction of that space, and the benefits stack up quickly. Better airflow means fewer fungal problems like powdery mildew. Fruits stay off the soil, avoiding rot and pests. Sunlight reaches all sides, leading to more even ripening. And harvesting? It becomes simple and visible instead of a guessing game. The key is choosing the right varieties. Stick with smaller types. Cantaloupes, honeydew, and compact watermelons under about 10 pounds. Larger melons are usually too heavy for most setups. Number 08, Malabar spinach. If you've ever tried growing traditional spinach in warm weather, you already know what happens. The moment temperatures rise, it bolts, leaves turn bitter, and your harvest disappears almost overnight. Malabar spinach doesn't follow those rules. It's not actually related to true spinach. It's a tropical vine that thrives in heat and humidity. While other greens struggle, this one accelerates. It can climb 10 to 15 feet in a single season, producing thick, glossy leaves that have a mild, pleasant flavor. You can eat them raw, cook them, or blend them into smoothies. And the more you harvest, the more it produces. On a trellis, it creates a vertical wall of greenery, both productive and visually striking. The stems, often red or white, add an ornamental touch while still being completely edible. It performs best in zones 7 through 11 and becomes perennial in warmer regions, providing a continuous supply of greens. So while other plants fail in summer heat, this one takes over and thrives. And here's the bigger picture. These crops aren't just improved by vertical growing. They rely on it to reach their full potential. But what comes next goes even further, because the next group of plants doesn't just benefit from trellising. They multiply your harvest in ways most gardeners never even consider. Now we're stepping into the phase where vertical gardening stops being a space-saving trick and starts becoming a production strategy. This is where experienced growers separate themselves from the average backyard gardener by getting more food out of the same space with less effort. Let's begin with a crop that's incredibly popular around the world but still underused in many gardens. Number 07, bitter melon. This is a fast-growing vine that thrives in warm climates and produces around 10 to 12 fruits per plant. It's widely used in Asian, Caribbean, and Indian cooking, and it's valued not just for its flavor, but for its nutritional and medicinal properties. But here's the issue most gardeners run into. When bitter melon is left to sprawl, the fruits disappear into thick foliage. They ripen unevenly, go unnoticed, and often split open before you ever harvest them. That's lost food. But when you guide the plant onto a trellis, something tall and open like an arch or vertical panel, the entire experience changes. The fruits hang freely, making it easy to harvest them at the perfect stage. No searching, no guessing. Just clean, visible produce that's ready when you are. Now let's move on to a crop that almost everyone grows. Number 06, peas. Yes, peas naturally climb, but most gardeners underestimate just how much support they actually need. Those small sticks or short trellises, they limit the plant's potential. If you really want to maximize your harvest, you need to think bigger. A full 6-foot trellis with closely spaced support gives every tendril something to grab. The result is stronger growth, better structure, and significantly higher yields. But here's where things get really interesting. You can turn that one trellis into a multi-layer growing system. On the side that gets full sun, plant root crops like carrots or beets. On the shaded side, grow leafy greens like lettuce or spinach that benefit from protection against harsh sunlight. Now you're not just growing peas, you're growing 3 different crops in the exact same footprint. That's efficiency most gardeners never tap into. Next, let's talk about one of the simplest upgrades you can make, switching from number 05, bush beans, to pole beans. Bush beans stay low, spread out, and require more space to produce a decent yield. Pole beans, on the other hand, grow vertically, and that alone changes everything. They can produce 2 to 3 times more in the same area. Why? Because instead of spreading horizontally, they stack their growth upward. Their vines naturally wrap around supports, making them easy to manage and harvest. And there's another hidden advantage. Because the foliage is elevated, it dries faster after watering or rain. That reduces the risk of fungal diseases that often affect bush varieties sitting close to the soil. Plus, just like other legumes, pole beans enrich your soil. They pull nitrogen from the air and store it in the ground, improving fertility for whatever you plant next. So while you're harvesting beans, you're also preparing your garden for future crops. Now here's one that surprises a lot of people. Number 04, eggplant. It doesn't climb. It doesn't vine. So why are we even talking about trellising it? Because of weight. As eggplants mature, the fruits become heavy. The branches, which aren't designed to carry that load, begin to bend and eventually snap. Once that happens, fruits touch the soil, inviting rot, pests, and disease. But with a simple support system, like vertical strings or stakes, you completely change the outcome. The plant stays upright and stable. Fruits hang cleanly in the air, away from soil contact. Air moves more freely through the plant, reducing humidity-related diseases. And harvesting becomes faster and easier because everything is visible and accessible. It's a small investment of time, just a few minutes per plant, but it pays off all season long. And it works whether you're growing in raised beds, containers, or directly in the ground. Now here's the bigger takeaway from this entire segment. These aren't just individual tips, they're part of a larger mindset shift. Instead of asking, how do I grow this plant? You start asking, how do I grow this plant more efficiently? How do you stack production? How do you reduce problems before they start? How do you get more harvest without expanding your space? And once you start thinking that way, your entire garden changes. But we're not done yet, because the final group of crops includes some of the most commonly grown vegetables, and fixing how you support them can completely transform your results. Now we've reached the final stretch, and this is where the biggest breakthroughs happen, because these next crops aren't rare or unusual. In fact, almost every gardener grows them. But here's the problem. Most people are leaving a huge amount of productivity on the table simply because of how they support them. Let's start with number 03, peppers. At first, pepper plants seem sturdy. They grow upright, look compact, and don't appear to need much help. But as the season progresses, something changes. The fruits start piling on. Bell peppers, jalapenos, habaneros, whatever variety you're growing, begin to weigh down the branches. Slowly, those branches start bending, then they crack, and eventually they break. That's when you lose yield, but a simple support system completely prevents this. By running vertical strings or horizontal lines along your pepper row, you create a structure that holds the plant upright as it grows. Instead of collapsing under its own weight, the plant stays balanced and stable. Now, here's the part most gardeners overlook. When a pepper plant is properly supported, its leaves are better positioned to receive sunlight evenly. That means more photosynthesis happening across the entire plant. More photosynthesis means more energy, and more energy means more fruit. It's a chain reaction that starts with something as simple as support. Now let's move to a crop that practically begs to climb. Number 02, cucumbers. Most gardeners know cucumbers can grow vertically. They have tendrils designed to grab onto anything nearby, and yet many still let them sprawl across the ground. That decision creates a long list of problems. Fruits sit directly on moist soil. leading to rot and disease. Leaves trap humidity, encouraging fungal issues like powdery mildew. Pests like slugs find easy access, and harvesting becomes frustrating. You're constantly searching through dense foliage, often missing ripe cucumbers until they've already gone too far. It turns into a guessing game, but the moment you introduce a trellis, all of that disappears. Cucumbers climb naturally, wrapping their tendrils around mesh, netting, or fencing without any effort from you. As they grow upward, fruits hang freely in the air. They develop straighter shapes because gravity pulls them evenly. They stay clean because they're no longer touching the soil. And they're incredibly easy to spot and harvest at just the right time. At the same time, airflow improves dramatically, which reduces disease pressure and keeps plants healthier throughout the season. It's one of the simplest upgrades you can make and one of the most impactful. And now, the final crop. The one nearly every gardener grows. The one most people think they already understand. Number 01, tomatoes. This is where the biggest mistake happens. Most gardeners rely on small wire cages, the kind you find at any garden center. They seem convenient, easy to use, and good enough. But they're not. Those cages might hold a plant early in the season, but once the plant reaches full size, especially indeterminate varieties, they collapse under the weight. And that's exactly when the plant is producing the most fruit. Instead of growing upward, the plant falls over, spreads out, and becomes tangled. Airflow drops, disease risk rises, and harvesting becomes difficult. But when you switch to a real vertical system, everything changes. Using string trellising, the Florida weave, or a tall arch structure, you guide the plant upward instead of outward. And here's where the real transformation happens. Training. Instead of letting the plant grow into a dense, bushy mass, you select a single main stem and remove excess side shoots. This focuses the plant's energy. Instead of spreading itself thin across dozens of branches, it channels everything into one strong, vertical leader. That leader produces fruit clusters all the way up the vine. The result is a plant that's easier to manage, easier to harvest, and far more productive. Air moves freely through the structure, reducing the risk of common diseases like blight. Sunlight reaches more of the plant, improving overall growth and fruit quality. And visually, it's a completely different experience. Instead of a tangled mess at ground level, you get tall, organized vines loaded with fruit. In some setups, especially with arched trellises, you can even grow tomatoes overhead, creating a tunnel of hanging fruit. Imagine walking through your garden and picking ripe cherry tomatoes above your head, one after another. That's not a special technique reserved for experts. It's simply what happens when you give tomatoes the support they actually need. And if there's one single upgrade you make this season, if this helped, subscribe to Verdant Harvest, share it, and tell me in the comments, which crop are you trellising first? Wait, if you're serious about cutting your chicken feed costs, then don't miss this. In this video, I reveal secret plants most people never talk about, and they can cut your feed cost by up to 50%. The video on your screen right now, click it immediately, or you'll regret missing this.